Hello, and welcome back to the Founders Atlas, a podcast exploring entrepreneurship around the world through the eyes of visionary founders. I'm your host, Mayuri Reddy. For today's episode, I won't be sitting down with a guest. Instead, I will be sharing my own insights on a topic I've dealt with a lot throughout my career: when to know if it's the right time to start thinking about international expansion. If you're building a startup that's found early traction in your home market, this question often comes up a lot sooner than you would expect. International expansion can feel like a sign that you're doing something right, like your startup is finally graduating to the big leagues and that you've proven yourself. Investors love to hear plans of growth. Maybe even your friends or family cheer you on. After all, building an international company can feel like a symbol of momentum, especially when competitors are making similar moves. But here's what I've seen up close again and again. Brilliant founders and teams with real product market fit at home struggle or straight up collapse when they expand too early into the wrong market or for the wrong reasons. I work with founders on 4 continents. I've helped companies launch in cities they've never set foot in, and I've seen how it can be done right. After spending nearly a decade embedded in Berlin's tech scene, I've also watched founders from all over the world try to make the new leap into new markets while building a business here. I've seen what's worked and where their shortcomings have led to an otherwise promising company eventually falter. So today, I want to offer 3 truths. Think of them as 3 things that every founder should pause and examine before they go global. If you're being pushed to internationalize or you're trying to decide whether you're actually ready, this podcast episode is for you. Welcome. This is the Founders Atlas. All right, let's get started. Truth number 1. You need to know why you're expanding and be honest about whether it's strategic or performative. The first thing I like to ask founders who are looking to expand into other markets is, why are you expanding? Too often, the answers are something like this. Our investors want us to capitalize on our growth here, and we have pretty big growth goals for the team size that we need to have, so it makes sense for us to go to a different market. Or, we see our competitors are interested in that market and we really want to be there first or be able to compete with them so that we're also not losing traction there too. And a pretty common one as well, things are going really great here, and we believe, given the similarities of A, B, and C, that we're going to see the same results there. And while these could be valid reasons to enter a new market, more often than not, they are done without thinking about what this means for their actual workload and the performance of the business. I've worked with companies who went global not because they were ready, but because someone on their board told them that they should. Your competitor opening a new office in Singapore does not mean that you need to. It's so easy to conflate growth with legitimacy, and going global can feel like a natural next step. But here's the truth. Expanding into a new market isn't a lever, it's almost like opening up a second startup. New laws, new taxes, new payment infrastructure, new cultural dynamics, new everything, layered on top of all of your existing chaos. So are you really ready to open another business? To be sure it's the right time to expand, a great signal is if you're seeing organic pull from the customers in that market. So, for example, if your product is being discovered, adopted, and retained without you trying in that new country, that's definitely a pull. If you're forcing a go-to-market motion to impress investors or outpace a rival, then that's a push. And here's the kicker. If your foundation isn't solid at home, if you're still figuring out your retention models, your pricing, your customer acquisition costs, global expansion will actually just magnify every crack in your model. Let's take Canva, for example, one of my favorite companies. They didn't rush into the US right away. They doubled down on product quality, grew organically, and waited until they had serious traction globally before they even opened up their first offices or operations abroad. It wasn't growth for growth's sake. It was deliberate, sustainable, strategic, and they now have a valuation of $49 billion, and they are continuing to be a company that everyone is super excited to see grow. Now let's compare that to WeWork. They opened in over 100 cities before their business model was proven. It wasn't thoughtful. It was expansion as theater, and it cost them big. Poor market understanding, weak unit economics, cultural clashes, all magnified by the speed and the huge ego of their founder. Here are some questions to ask yourself to evaluate if you are going into this market and doing the expansion the right way. Number 1, are there clear indicators that this new market has potential? If so, Do you have a team in place that has the skills and the capacity to make the establishment of that new market entity successful? And if you don't, do you know how to get the right talent in place to make that happen? Number two, have you really owned your current market? Are there methods for deeper expansion where you have yet to explore? And number three, be honest with yourself. Are you being pushed by ego, optics, or pressure? If so, it's definitely not the right move. Be sure you know why you're doing it and that you are fully ready for the endeavor. If you're not, there is no reason to feel bad about where you are. You could likely build a stronger, more profitable business by staying focused and being sure of your product market fit before expanding. And then when you're ready, you will have a better foundation for success. Truth number two, culture is not equal to language and can be the start of being caught in the trap of being similar enough. The second mistake I see way too often is assuming that language or proximity equals cultural compatibility. I once worked for a Berlin based startup expanding into Austria. They thought it'd be a breeze, same language, shared border, but within 6 months, they realized that they were not growing at the speed that they had predicted. Customers did not respond the same. Why? Because Austria and Germany, while linguistically similar, are culturally and behaviorally very different. Their bet on expansion led to losing hundreds of millions of euros and a huge dilution of their brand when they soon pulled out of the market completely. Another example, maybe even more dramatic, UK startups entering the US or vice versa. Sure, both markets speak English, but the tone, the confidence, the sales cycle, completely different. A more understated British pitch might be misread as unconvincing to an American boardroom. On the flip side, an American style pitch full of optimism and big claims can feel overblown in Europe, maybe inauthentic and full of fluff. You fall into what is kind of called the similar enough trap, which is that you think that because there are similarities that the results will be the same when you also expand into that market. It's not whether you can just translate your product though, it's about whether you've translated your entire operating mindset. Let's take a look at Spotify. They understood that the US wasn't just a bigger Sweden. They localized deeply from the product experience to how they partnered with artists. They hired people who knew the American music scene and built marketing strategies around how US listeners discover and share music. That cultural sensitivity made all of the difference. Now let's look at a case that didn't work out so well, Tesco, and their failed expansion into the US. Their grocery chain, Fresh and Easy, bombed. Why? Because they didn't understand American shopping behavior. Things like larger carts, different food preferences, and widespread dislike for self checkout at the time didn't really end well for them. On paper, it looked like an easy leap, but in reality, they burned over €1 billion. Even with a large market size, you can still fall flat if you don't think critically about how customer behavior can be different. When evaluating yourself against this truth, ask yourself, have we deeply researched how customers in this market make decisions, manage risk, and perceive value? Are we adapting our approach, or are we just copying and pasting what worked at home? And have we thought about how marketing will need to be different to acquire customers here? When founders rely on surface level similarities, they can often overlook the deeper work required to truly localize, not just translate their business. True localization really requires a cultural understanding of the market that you're entering. Truth number three, if you're not taking the time to understand the market on the ground, you're going to be going in unprepared. This is maybe the most overlooked topic, but a really critical piece in being able to do your market expansion effectively. Oftentimes, I've seen founders forget to talk to the right people, or worse, they stay in their echo chamber. You'd be amazed at how many companies I've seen rely entirely on Google searches, analyst reports from McKinsey, and investor opinions to inform their go-to-market plans in a new country. And look, I love a good report, but it's not a substitute for talking to someone who's actually built a business in that market. Real localization and effective expansion cannot be done without taking time to understand and respect the market that you're entering. There is so much to be gained from asking people who've actually built in that market. Things like the regulatory and taxation realities, the types of partnerships, sales cycles, what it's like to hire and find talent, and even, of course, the cultural norms. You can't find these answers on TechCrunch. Before you fly out your VP of growth or set up a shiny new office, get in touch with local operators. Talk to founders who failed and stayed. Ask them what they wish they knew when they started, and really try to build off of that. You know, a huge part of why I actually started this podcast was exactly for this reason. to give listeners insights into what it takes to be successful in different parts of the world. You can talk to some of the guests that have been on the show. All of them would be happy to give you insights about what it took for them to build their businesses the right way. I know it can feel daunting, and it, of course, will take time to do this. It will probably also slow down your expansion plans a bit to take the time to really get this information. But this is so much better than going into a new market and feeling blindsided by the differences. An example of a company that did this well is Airbnb. When they moved into Asia, they brought in local leadership, rebranded in China, and actually changed product features to reflect local travel and trust behaviors. They knew that without true local context, they'd fumble. And while China is still a tough market to enter, they were much better prepared than most. Zalando, on the other hand, struggled early when they were expanding into the UK and Nordics. They tried to replicate their German success without adapting enough. Customer expectations were different, product market fit wasn't really there yet. So it took time, mistakes, and a lot of money to realize that localization isn't optional, and they had to really pivot their approach. They would have, of course, saved a lot more time had they done this work in the beginning. A lot of founders, especially the well-networked, well-funded ones, assume they can figure it out as they go. But moving fast in the wrong direction isn't just inefficient, it's expensive and can be demoralizing to your teams. And once you've blown your first impression in a new market, it's hard to get it back. Some questions to ask yourself when you're approaching this: who are 5 people I can speak to who've operated in this market? What are they doing that we can replicate and build off of? Are we able to employ people locally who have a deeper context into this market? And are we willing to listen and take their feedback as we continue to grow? And maybe the toughest question, even if this opportunity is there, is now really the right time? Especially if you're feeling VC pressure, it can be even more important to slow down, do your homework, and go in with eyes wide open. You don't need a 30-person local office to get started, but you do need to have real conversations with people on the ground. To recap, if you're thinking about going global, I want you to ask yourself these questions and really think about how to go in a way that's going to ensure that you're the most successful. Think about if this is really a strategic move or if you're chasing optics. Have a real understanding of the cultural, not just linguistic differences of the market you're going into, and really talking to the folks that are on the ground who can give you context into what it would be like to really build a business there. Because when international expansion is done right, it's a massive lever for your business and can truly lead to exponential growth. Done poorly, it's expensive, distracting, and can even lead to irreversible damage. If this resonated or made you reflect on your own growth plans, I'd love to hear from you. And if you got a story of a successful or painful expansion, send me a message on LinkedIn. I might just feature it on a future episode. Finally, if you would like to support the podcast, give us a like, subscribe, share, anything to show some love. It helps more than you know. Until next time, thank you for tuning into the Founders Atlas. I hope you enjoyed the ride.